Hey Cheryl, it's Justin. How are you?
Hey, Justin, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Normally the tech is more complicated than this, but I feel like we're good to go. So you're on the speakerphone here in the boardroom, and
Okay.
like we talked about, if you want to mute yourself here in a minute and then unmute yourself when you hear the mayor say that your item's up next, we'll be good to go.
Perfect. I will do that right now. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Wow. So right here, you need to turn it in
Okay.
and down.
Okay.
So this is the audit instead of the big.
There's a link in the packet.
Yeah, you can go to it.
Full copy hasn't come from the printer yet.
I
And
clicked on that earlier, I was trying to figure.
Yeah, I looked at it.
just for everybody's information, if you click on the audit, it'll, when you get to that in your online packet, it'll take you away from the meeting packet. But if you just click the back arrow, it'll take you back to the meeting packet after you look at the audit.
Great, thank you for clarifying that.
That was trial and error on my part.
I did it earlier today and I forgot the whole process.
Grayson's still with.
Okay.
Can't never make this
He's in
thing
class.
work.
Okay.
It is aggravating sometimes, isn't it?
And that is
Yeah, okay,
peddlers
there
and
you go.
schemers,
Yeah,
solicitors.
sometimes I get lost in there, I can't
Okay.
find the right page.
We had talked about with, Caleb actually brought up with Noah, maybe putting a link at the bottom of each page that will return you back to the home.
That would be good.
So that it's easier to navigate. I think if, for tonight, if you highlight the page number up at the top and just type in 2, it'll take you back to that very first
Yeah.
agenda packet as well. All right. Oh no. Just want to move over. Guys, have
Just give it a take. You just do it.
Foggy out there, isn't it? Foggy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Weather keeps having us guess every day what it's gonna be.
Yep.
It's gonna be real foggy going home.
Yep. It is.
December. Okay, I'll call the December Town Council meeting for the Town of Boiling Springs to order. First item of business is adoption of the agenda. Council, you have the agenda before you. Are there any amendments or suggestions? If not, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, Mr. Thomas with the motion,
Second.
Mr. Green with the second. All those in favor, cast your votes.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if I'll ever get this or not.
All right, the agenda is adopted. Are there any citizens here present that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. All right, our first item of regular business, we have Ms. Laura Beaver and Mr. Henry Gilmore here to present about the Partners Aligned for Literacy Success, known as PALS. Thank you guys for coming.
You're so welcome. So do we need to stand any particular way or anywhere? Okay, all right, well, thank you. Well, I'm Laura Beaver. I am the district literacy specialist for Cleveland County. In the past, I have been one of the Title I facilitators for our district for a number of years and have done a lot of work with literacy as well. But we're here tonight to share with you an initiative called Partners Aligned for Literacy Success, which is known as PALS. So if you start hearing anything about Cleveland County PALS, that's what it's all about. And so the way this came about was Dr. Fisher, about 2 years ago, said that he wanted to have some conversations with us at the district office and think about ways that we could share our vision for literacy with the community, to go beyond the walls of our classroom, beyond the walls of central services in our schools, but to make sure that the people within the community knew about the focus that we have for Cleveland County. And so that's kind of how PALS came about. He asked if we could kind of come up with something that would help our community members understand what it's about and maybe even encourage them to take on some literacy initiatives within their own companies or within their own businesses or places of work. And so originally he was thinking of something along the line of like drop everything and read or self-selected reading time. But those just didn't seem to kind of make a connection between Cleveland County schools and the community. They were kind of really more things that happen within the classroom. And so we came up with this acronym of PALS, PALS, which stands for Partners Aligned for Literacy Success. And so with that in mind, and my clicker, it's not working. If you'll just click, and I'll just nod to you each time I need to click. Did you get it to work, or did he click? I don't know. Okay, all right. So partners basically is in and of itself. In the school system, we have lots of partners. We have parents as partners. We have teachers that partner up. We have different people from different schools work together and partner up. But we want it to be that that partnership extend beyond our walls, like I said, into our community. So we're looking for partners when we think of our PALS program. People that are going to work together for the same vision. And so we have really seen that is really starting to take off within Cleveland County. When it comes to aligned, we know what aligned means. It means basically what you see here with this image here is that we're all working toward one targeted goal. And our goal with Partners Aligned for Literacy Success is to make sure that our community completely understands what our focus is in Cleveland County in regards to literacy instruction and how we're passionate about making sure all of our children in Cleveland County can read by the time they leave third grade. But also that they're willing to join the mission with us and that they're willing to take some action in and of themselves. And so that's what align means, that we're all going to be aligned to that one goal. And of course that one goal is literacy success. There's a lot of research out there in the community as far as the struggles that students face. If you look at the back side of your handout, you'll see on the back side about reading. And if you look at the section there in the middle where it has 45M, of course that stands for million, and then 13 million, that gives you a good idea of some of the gaps that we have in our community. Not only in our community, but in communities across the nation. There's a national report card out there that gives some information about students in fourth grade that are struggling with learning to read, and that many of our kids in the United States leave fourth grade not as proficient readers. And so some of that statistics is related to this, that early intervention is the key. If you look at the comparison there are some children that enter kindergarten before with 30 million fewer words than their peers before age 4. So by the time they enter kindergarten at the age of 5, they are already significantly behind their peers. And one of the reasons why they are only able to speak and understand that many less words is because people are not talking to them. There's not someone reading to them, singing songs to them that are part of that early literacy development. So we can get the idea out there that our children, no matter what home they're coming from, need that opportunity to hear language, to hear stories being read to them, that can impact all of our children coming into Cleveland County to help them be ready for the learning that's going to take place once they hit kindergarten. So those are some things that we want our not only our school members to be aware of, but also our community members to be aware of, because many times we think that the environment that our families grow up in, that if they're in a wealthy home, that they're going to be okay when they hit school. Well, no, they're not if someone's not speaking to them. And we know our generations are changing with our families. There's been a lot of changing in how we relate with our children and spend time with our children. So we really want to make sure that everybody understands that even though that we have so much technology right at our fingertips, that holding a book, sitting down and reading with your child is extremely important, no matter what age they are, but especially in those younger years prior to the time that they start kindergarten. So one of the other things that I want you to pay attention to is that last part down there at the bottom. A child not reading at grade level by the end of first grade has 88% chance of not reading at grade level by the end of fourth grade. So they're leaving our first grade classroom showing that they are significantly behind or even slightly behind their peers. They're going to run the risk of not being on grade level by the time that they leave fourth grade. And so it's really important that we hit those students at the earlier years as much as possible, and we can do that. The other thing that's really important is graduation rates for Cleveland County. And so if you look at that other part at the bottom of that page, it says those not reading proficiently by third grade are 4 times most likely to not graduate. And that's something that we want to make sure is not a situation that we're facing in Cleveland County. So with our partners, Aligned for Literacy Success, we're not only trying to get people aware of what's happening in Cleveland County, but we want them to be aware of our goal. We have a goal which seems like kind of almost an outrageous goal to think that by 2030, and we think that's a long time away, but boy, this time goes by really fast, that by 2030 that we want all of our third grade students to be able to meet grade level or exceed grade level expectations. But that's going to take a lot of efforts on everyone's part. And one of the ways that we're helping to do that is by making sure our teachers are skilled with the knowledge that is required to make sure they know how to work with their children to help them become proficient readers. All of the teachers in Cleveland County, if they are in pre-K through 5th grade, are basically kind of in a sense going back to college. They're still working full time. They're not going on campus somewhere. They're not tuning into a class at one of our local colleges. It's a course that we are signed up with that's called LETTERS. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but it's basically the science of reading training. And they're getting trained on that on a weekly basis. They're spending anywhere from 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours a week in sessions and doing personal reading time, as well as doing some activities with kids that they have to document the progress of the students. But then they're also participating in online learning and virtual learning opportunities as well. So our teachers are going to be spending not only this school year, but also next school year, if they started this year, in completing this training. As more teachers come on board, we'll continue to provide that training for them as well. But that's not only something that we're doing in Cleveland County, that's something the state is doing. And that is kind of a requirement, but the requirement is necessary so that we can make sure our kids are successful. Other things that we are doing specifically in Cleveland County to reach that goal is to make sure that we are providing consistent resources to our students. And so we've really worked hard over the past couple of years to make sure we're purchasing curriculum that aligns with the science of reading, but that also supports our teachers with making sure that they can teach our earliest learners as well as our older students. And so we're trying to make sure from school to school across Cleveland County the resources are there, the teachers have the same materials and the same curriculum so that the students, no matter what school they go to, are receiving same high-quality literacy instruction. So that's really important for us in Cleveland County, and we're continuing to use some of our COVID funds to help support that. And then one of the other things is family engagement and community partnerships. And that is how we can make sure that this vision of all students in 3rd grade by 2020 can be able to be on grade level or exceeding grade level expectations. And so through that, we have PALS. Now, PALS is designed to help motivate our students in the classroom, help them develop relationships, help them improve reading skills, and help them celebrate success, because in the classroom, we ask our teachers just at least once a week to have what's called PALS time. And that's, in a sense, where kids partner up, they pick a book, they partner up with their pal. Once they partner up with their pal, they spend a little bit of time actively reading, and they learn about what active reading looks like. They listen to their partners read at the end of that reading time, and then they listen to their partners share their ideas about what they've been reading about. So if the teacher was saying, pay attention as you read about the characters, and did the character change throughout the story? Then when it's time to share their thoughts with each other, that's the conversations that they're having. So PALS time in the classroom is kind of just about partnering up and sharing about what they're reading about. But as far as in the community, it looks quite different. And so we're here tonight to talk to you about what does it look like in the community. So in the community, we need your help. And so Henry's going to talk to you briefly. I don't know if the next slide's mine or not. I can't remember. Henry. But he's going to talk to you about some opportunities that are available, not only for you all that are here tonight, but those of you that might be watching from home later on this week or this month, to figure out ways that you might can get involved with Cleveland County's PALS program. And so he's going to start off by talking about the book notes. If you look on the front side of your paper, you'll see as he's talking, he's going to mention some of these items that are either in little bubbles or that are connected there with the bullets. But these are ways that are simple approaches that help our students across Cleveland County know that we're rooting for them, we're supporting them, and we've got some opportunities to support them with literacy, whether they're out of business or whether they're at home snuggled up with a good book with their family. So Henry's going to talk about those opportunities.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming us to come and make a presentation. My name is Henry Gilmore III, and I am the Community and Family Engagement Director for Cleveland County Schools. I'm a former teacher, former school principal. I was principal at Kings Mountain Intermediate School for 10 and a half years, and I was assistant principal at Kings Mountain High School, and then I taught in Kings Mountain Middle School. So that's my background as far as education is concerned. So again, we want to just, my part tonight is just to help you understand what are some ways that you all could get involved, what are some things that you could do. So Book Nooks is the first thing I'll mention. And Book Nooks are basically small bookshelves with a small collection of books. It's right now it's 75, 85 books. Let me see if there's a picture of the, no, okay.
They'll be on through on.
They're on there, okay. So the way we are doing Book Nooks right now is either a business or an individual can purchase a Book Nook and donate it for a business or an entity, and what we're focusing on for those is places where people spend time. Offices, hair salons, barbershops, we're ready to move into like dentists and doctors' offices and whatnot, where people have to wait for services. And while they're waiting, then rather than the child sitting there scrolling through an iPad or scrolling through a phone, they can pick up a book and read a book. So we have an agreement with Scholastic Books, and we get good prices on books through Scholastic. So what we, with most of our Book Nooks right now, the individual or the business, they'll invest about $150, and then we'll match that, and then we also will purchase a little bookcase that, there's a picture, anyway, we'll purchase a little bookcase, oh, here we go, that the books will go in. And for example, these are a few places where we have Book Nooks already. These are some hair salons and barbershops. We also have Book Nooks at the Boys and Girls Club. We're about to put another Book Nook. There's a sorority that's about to buy a Book Nook for the Boys and Girls Club over at Falston Elementary, and we have several elementary schools who have Boys and Girls Clubs. So we want to get Book Nooks in those areas as well. The Mooney Library is one of our partners, and they wrote a grant to put book nooks in a lot of spaces, and they're focusing on the Kings Mountain area, although they all stepped out, and we put one, just delivered one last week to the Abuse Prevention Council, where, you know, folks, mostly ladies who are abused are there, and they have children, so we provided a book nook for them so that the children will have books to read. They also provided a book nook for all of the elementary schools in Kings Mountain. There's a laundromat that we're putting one in. There's an apartment complex that we're putting one in with like a subsidized housing apartment complex. So we're just trying to inundate the county with reading materials, and these are mostly short little books that can be read in one sitting. A child could read it, or a parent could read it to a child, but some of the books are a little bit longer. Now, we're not so concerned with, because we don't want to make people into librarians, so you're not checking out the books and you have to, you know, bring it back by a certain time and that kind of thing. Read the book. If a book comes up missing, then that's a book in somebody's home that wasn't there. That's the way we view it. The Mooney Library is being very kind, and they're supporting not only replenishing the book nooks that they're putting into schools and other places, but they also help us with just giving us additional books when we need a few to add into a book nook. So far, that hasn't happened yet as far as having to replenish because the books are missing, but we do know that over time, that's going to happen. So we are looking to put as many book nooks in as many different businesses, and anyone can help make that happen. We've had individuals, again, we've had McNichol, I think is the name of the financial services. They did one for the Boys and Girls Club. We have Omega Psi Phi fraternity who donated us $500 to provide book nooks, so on and so forth. So that's one way we're doing this. And then also, we have businesses that are partnering with schools. So Clearwater was our first one to partner with the school. And what they did was purchase a book for all of the kindergarten, first grade students at James Love Elementary. Their leadership team went to the school, read the books to the children, and then gave the teachers books to give all the children to take home. Well, since then, that kind of caught fire, because since then, the Sheriff's Department did the same thing for Washington Elementary. They're planning to do the same thing for Township 3 Elementary later in the year. I think, what's their name? Pardon?
The Rotary.
Rotary Club, right. Rotary Club, thank you. I knew it was one more. So Rotary Club right now is putting books in all of our elementary schools. They purchased books for second and third grade, is that right? Second and third grade of all of our elementary schools. So this morning I had the pleasure of going over to Washington Elementary, and a couple of the Rotarians were reading the book and delivering the books to classes. So they read the book to 2 classes, delivered the books, and then tomorrow they're doing the second half of the schools in our school district, and again doing that with them as well. And yes, it is quite an investment. It's about a $7,000 investment for them to do that for all of our schools. But still, it's a wonderful investment, and it's a great way to invest in children. So and then the library here, as I mentioned, they wrote a $10,000 grant and received it for PALS. And so that's where we're getting all of those book nooks and other things going in the Kings Mountain area. We also have developed a relationship with Cleveland Community College, and that's not one for book nooks or providing books, but that relationship is built more around being reading buddies. So you'll see on the paper here, I think there's one little bubble that talks about that, or a book, becoming a book buddy. So what they're doing is their athletic teams will be going to some of the elementary schools and spending time reading with children, and also being a support for teachers, maybe doing a lesson and spending time with kids and developing relationships with them. So we have that, and then also they are providing some work study students who need work study hours for college, and they are volunteering now to go into our schools and be support for teachers in classrooms. We have one so far who has signed up and should be starting pretty soon, and she's going to be at a school working, I think it's 20 hours a week that she'll be donating her time, and then college will pay her through the work study program, for that. So I think that's a wonderful arrangement. So I think that's all with that, but we just look forward to how that's going to continue to develop over time. because that's really a wonderful way to get involved. These are some of the other partners we have. The Earl Scruggs Center, they did a summer program that included reading this past summer. They're going to continue to do that. The Cleveland County Public Health Center, the health department, they are right beside Elizabeth Elementary, so they promote walking and good health, so they give their employees time to get out and walk. Well, now they have some who have signed up and they're walking over to Elizabeth Elementary to spend time on Pals Day, as Laura mentioned, and supporting the reading to children at the school. Again, the Omega Psi Phi donated $500. Communities and Schools is involved as well. And then we have some local authors who donated books that went into all of our schools. And then just other various citizens of Cleveland County who have gotten involved. We also have started over at, this is the Old North Shelby site. It's Mount Calvary Community Life Center with Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And we've started a program there and it's a community-based program. It's a Robertsdale community in Shelby, which is a neat area of the city. And is it preschool?
Yeah, preschool through fifth grade,
Preschool.
after-school program.
Right, it's an after-school program. And the older kids they're serving are from Jefferson and Elizabeth. And I think the younger children are children in the community that, again, are getting on the front side of getting those phonics and getting what they need so that when they enter school, they're not behind and they're ready to be able to learn how to read earlier in their lives. So that's a neat program. That program started in September and it is continuing. And so that's really good with what they're doing. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to. We just, again, you'll see here on the sheet where we're asking folks to just spend time reading. We want adults to read more as well. You know, we want adults to join book clubs, you know, spend time together because you're modeling and young people see that reading is important because they see the grown folks doing it. So those are just some of the other things that we do. You could go into a school and be a reading partner. You can go and do book talks to talk about books that you've read, to encourage kids to read. So those are a few of the ways that you could get involved as individuals, or if you have a business, or if you have, you know, any organization you're a part of. All you have to do is just give us a call, or I think you have our little cards.
So we
here.
have little donation cards, because we say it's like church anytime we get together, we're together, you know, we're gonna take up an offering. So, but we're not gonna necessarily make you write a check today, but if you do feel the calling and the weighing on your heart, we would be glad to take that check for you. But now listen, we are being real. There are a lot of opportunities. Some of them cost money. So to do the book nook, the smallest, the cheapest cost for a book nook, like you said, is about $150. If you choose to buy the larger book nook for a business, it's about a $250 cost, and then of course Cleveland County matches it. And I'm not sure if Henry said that. Not only do we match it with an extra, a double dose of books, copies of book titles to go in the book nook, but we also provide a handy dandy bookshelf, and Henry has gotten really good at putting those bookshelves
Yes,
together.
I can do it in 10 minutes now.
So the shelf is included in with it, but some of the things don't take much, like you said. If you have a favorite book from your childhood that you would like to share with your students, you can do like what Daniel Thomas does. He has gone and read to several of our first grade and second grade classrooms at Springmore and Golden Springs. Or you can do a recording, because look at all these computers in front of you all. You can do a recording and send that recording to the schools for them to see the little book talk. Because I'm sure all of you, if you're like me, you probably grew up with Reading Rainbow, right? Y'all remember Reading Rainbow? And those little cute little book talks that inspire you to read. So some things don't cost anything. Just just showing up once to read is a once and done event, but it is powerful and it does mean something to the children and to the family. So just know that it doesn't take dollars to be a pal. It just takes a commitment and a desire to make sure that you're helping our children know that you're reading for them and that you're encouraging them and that you're going to support them, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, or financially. Also, you don't have to specify financial contributions. They can be given to our foundation. The Education Foundation is what all the money comes into. It goes into the Education Foundation. So if you're not particular as for what you want your dollars to be spent for, you can just make a donation, or your company can make a donation, and then that would be a great, awesome Christmas gift in honor of somebody that, you know, really, you don't know what else to buy 'em. You can make a contribution that way as well.
And
But,
Laura, if I may, there are two things I failed to mention. One was, when the book fairs come through, we have students who can't afford, already passed them out. We have students who
got one.
can't afford,
You got one.
books, and so donations are used for that kind of thing. But one thing we have just started, we have an application out, all of our principals, are identifying at least one family in their elementary school, who could use a small home library. Because we know the more books in the home, the more reading is going to take place. So we've gotten one so far, and all of the rest of our schools are going to be identifying a family and then sending them the link to fill out the little application, which is very simple. But we are also providing some small home libraries with about 15 books for each child in the home. And even if they're not in school yet, about 15 books for each child on their grade level that can make a small home library as well.
So we just keep expanding, and we have been blessed. The Lord has blessed us without a doubt. We started off small with Clearwater saying, "I'll do it,"
Yeah.
and then it has snowballed, and there's so many book nooks out there. So we just encourage you as a community, is first think about the schools within the community. You have Springmore and Bowling Springs here. You also have a lot of daycares in this area too, that you might even want to become a pal to the daycare because they eventually become Cleveland County School students. So just keep those things in mind. If you have any ideas that you want to throw out to us, we can always brainstorm additional ideas with you. But we are open to any idea, any suggestion. I will not walk around and gather those from you. I will let you give those to Daniel, and then he'll put them in the courier to me or to Henry, and we'll make sure that if you are interested in more information or would like to make a contribution, that we do reach out to you. So we just appreciate you letting us be a part of this. We appreciate the efforts you've already put in place. He's even inspiring his government students in your AP history class, right, to go ahead and start promoting this cause. So they've got several businesses already committed to either sponsor a book nook and within their business, or to donate some dollars to this cause. So thanks for having us here. Does anybody have any questions?
And I know the Gardner Webb Wrestling team has been in classrooms already as well, reading, and so we've got so many resources here in town to support our kids. So thank you so much for any comments or questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, sounds good.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
You guys are welcome to stick around and hear about our audit if you want.
Since it's a good one.
That's right. Ms. Keller, if you want to come up.
All right. Well, first I want to say, as usual, thank you for allowing us to do the audit again this year. You'll notice that I handed everyone a packet that has some information. It has this form and some letters with it. On the back of this one, I have stapled just a little blurb, a little thing that's going to highlight kind of what I'm going to go over today, and it has page numbers on there so that you can reference it to the audit. I believe you have an electronic copy of the audit. If you were looking at the audit this year compared to last year, you'll notice that there's a few things that look a little different this year. For one, the TDA, that is a discretely presented component unit of the town. We now have to show the financials for the TDA in the back of the actual town audit. And that is on pages 53 to 55 of the audit when you're looking at that, and that is a balance sheet and income statement for the TDA. That's not been there in the past. It's a new thing that the Local Government Commission said this year we had to put in there, since the TDA does not issue its own separate audit. I guess they wanted to be able to see it pulled out separately. You got COVID funds this year, ARPA funds. They had to be shown as a special revenue fund. You haven't had that in the past, so that is on page 50 of the audit. It shows what you got from COVID and how much you spent this year. You made a transfer out to the water sewer fund this year to cover salaries, and that schedule shows that. Another thing that looks different, if you look at the opinion letter, It doesn't say much more than it used to, but they've added a lot of different language. It went from 2 pages to 3 pages. It pretty much says the same thing it said before. They just changed how it said it, but you'll notice that it looks very different if you were to compare it to prior years. It still says the same thing, that the opinion is unmodified, that you had a clean audit. It just looks different the way that they've discussed it. Some of the good things I want to bring your attention to, page 51 of the audit, your water sewer fund, you budgeted $2.2 million in expenditures. Your actual was only 1.8. So you came in well under budget. That's a good thing. The general fund, you budgeted 3.2 in expenditures. You only had, your actual was 2.8. So again, you're coming in under budget, which is good. It means that you're running the town well. You're coming in under that. So that's always good. Your unrestricted cash actually increased by $398,000. So you had a good, healthy increase in your unrestricted cash, which is always good. So now we're going to move on to this report, which is the one kind of not fun thing to talk about. So you'll see there on the first page, I have a number circled. The local government commission, and I'm not sure that they've explained anywhere where they come up with these thresholds, but they have determined that a town of this size should have at least 34% of their general fund expenditures as available in fund balance, not restricted for anything, available to meet your expenditures. The calculation that the local government commission uses is on the second page. You'll see that your calculation came up to 33.87%, and they require 34. I sent several emails to the LGC asking them, can we not round that up? 33.87, that rounds to 34, and they ignored me. The first email I sent, they asked me to send them a copy of this, and I did, and then never heard anything, and I sent other emails, and they just never responded to me, even though they responded to other emails about other things I had sent. So I guess that's they're like, oh, well, too bad. So what you have to do because of that is you will have to write a letter. In the past, the LGC would have looked at that, they would have sent you a letter saying, hey, what's going on here, and you would have responded. Well, they no longer send that letter to you. They have us do this, have me come to the meeting, tell you you have to send a letter. So you will have to put together, or I guess Rhonda will have to put together a letter to the LGC that you will approve and submit to them, basically saying why you were under it and how you plan to not be under it in the future. One of the things you'll see on that second page that I wrote down, one of the reasons for it this year, you bought the leaf truck. That's not an every year expenditure. That's something that you only have every 10 years or whatever, and you had to do that last year. So that's $73,000. You did a crosswalk that was $21,000. These are not things that are every year. This is capital outlay that doesn't happen all the time. If you had not had those expenses in there, you would have been at 35% and you would have met it. So those are the things that you say in the letter. You say, we had no choice. We had to get a leaf truck. We needed one. That's not an expenditure we're going to have in the future, so we should meet it going forward. And that's all they're really requiring. And I know that because I had another town, they saved up for 3 or 4 years to do these big projects. They did them, and now they're way under that expenditure because of the projects. And I asked the OGC, I said, they've been saving up for this for years. Should that really be a finding? And they told me, yes, they still have to write a letter and just say, we did these expenditures this year because we were saving up for them. We won't have that in the future. So I think that's what you would need to say in your letter. We did these capital outlay things. They're not typical things. We won't have that in 22, 23, and we'll be able to meet it. We'll be able to add to our reserves. All of the other, and on that page, I have listed the page numbers that correspond to the audit for where you can find the numbers. And this calculation, this sheet is actually provided by the local government commission. If you remember last year, I had to try to write it all out for you, and I accidentally got part of it cut off in the bottom and didn't know it. And But this year, they actually provided this sheet because so many people had questions about how it was calculated. So I went through and put what page numbers it corresponds to in the audit so that you'll be able to follow along and pull it up if you would like to look at the calculations. Every other calculation that they look at, you guys met by leaps and bounds. Your water sewer fund is very, very healthy, which we don't see a lot in Cleveland County and some of the, but your water sewer fund is very healthy. If you look at those calculations there, the one I have circled number 1, they want you to be equal or greater than 1, you're at 5.22. You're meeting that by a lot. The number 2, they want it to be greater than 0, you're at 200,000. Number 3, they want it to be greater than 16%, you're at 61%. And again, I've written down the page numbers on there where you can find those numbers. It's basically, like number 3, they're taking your unrestricted cash and dividing it by certain expenses to make sure you have enough, and you have 61% of your expenses already covered in unrestricted cash. So they're just asking you to be more than 16%, you're at 61. So your water sewer fund, like I said, you're very healthy, you've met all those requirements on there, you've met everything else they asked for, it's just that one, they didn't let me round up to 34. And so in your management letter this year, that was the only thing. I had the normal thing I tell you every year to make sure you guys stay involved in looking at the finances, just to provide some oversight. And then the second thing this year was just to closely monitor that fund balance so that you meet it next year.
Questions?
Now, that was a lot of information.
Justin, do we foresee capital output or, let me see,
Capital outlay.
outlay increases again next year for other items that may make us a repeat offender?
There's none that I have on my list right now. We'll start the budgeting process in January to see what we need, but, I mean, we have a new garbage truck, we have a new lease program with Enterprise, we have a new dump truck, so things are pretty well outfitted. I did want to make a note, or just a comment to the fund balance percentage. When Ms. Keller came last year and presented, that was when we were kind of first made aware of the 34%, which was an increase of the threshold from previous years. And before that, we'd had a few withdrawals, if you will, from fund balance. And since then, we have not had any. And our aim was to make sure that we didn't go below that threshold. And we were $3,200 short. But,
Yeah, it was just $3,200 in cash is all you were short, or $9,000 in expenses too high. That's, on a budget your size, that's.
So it has been front of mind. I wanted council to know that we have kept an eye on that since we heard about it last year, and wish we'd have been a little bit higher and hit that mark. But we should be fair going into to next year, and we'll make sure that we're accounting for that and looking for it as we prepare the budget.
And there is one other thing that I forgot to mention, that when we look at differences between prior years and this year, there was a new standard that took effect, a lease standard, where now instead of you having your lease and you just record your payments every year to leases, we now have to take the total time on the lease and the total payments that are going to be made or that you're going to receive, and we have to do either a lease payable or a lease receivable depending on what it is. And so in your water sewer fund, you have the water tower, the lease that you do for the cell antenna. And so we had to put a lease receivable on the books for $339,000. That's not been on there before. And that was because we looked at the contract, had to determine how far it went out, take all the payments you're gonna get, discount it to present value. And now, every year when you receive that lease payment, rather than it going into lease revenue, it's gonna be broken down between lease receivable principal and interest income. And when you do this new lease with Enterprise, it's gonna be the same way for your vehicles. Instead of just being able to record lease payments, we're now gonna have to have a lease payable on the books that puts all the lease payments that you're gonna have discounted down. And then when you make your payments, it's gonna be treated like debt, basically. It's gonna be treated like principal and interest as opposed to just lease payments. Those kind of things have not been on the books until June 30, 22. They've been trying to pass this for a long time, and because it was so complicated, it kept getting pushed back, and they finally stopped pushing it back, said we had to do it this year. So that kind of looks a little different when you see stuff like that on your balance sheet. The reasoning is it all kind of started when the airlines went bust, because they had billions of dollars of leases that were not on their books, and they had to be bailed out. And that kind of started them with this. They don't want you to have $400,000, I don't know what the numbers are, $400,000 in leased vehicles and it not showing up on your balance sheet. So we do now have to record that, and that's something that's gonna look odd. You might look at the statements going through it and say, why do we have a $300 receivable? or next year, why do we have this huge payable that you don't recognize? And that's what it is, and it's audit adjustments only. It's things that you're not really gonna see on the financials that you look at. It's gonna be something that is recorded on the audit. But if nobody has any questions, I just wanna, like we usually say, we are here all year round. We're not here just at audit time. If you guys have any questions, if you need any help looking at these fund balance numbers or looking at the leases or anything like that, we are here for anything that you guys need.
I just have a comment. I think we would be remiss if we said, we can't buy a leaf truck because we're gonna be below the 34%.
Yeah.
So I think we have to balance that with, we do it and then we tell them why we did it, rather than saying, we're not doing that because we're gonna get gigged on the audit. I don't think we can fall into that.
I agree.
The other thing I'd like to say is, having been in Rhonda's seat for many, many years, I'd like to commend her and the staff on the job that they do year in, year out. I know that it takes a lot of work to get to your report, and so I think they should be commended for the job that they do. And I think the whole staff should be commended for the way we manage our budget.
I definitely agree with that. This is one of my favorite places to go because of the clean books that I get when it's time to do the audit. We don't get that everywhere. We have a million adjustments, and we look at the financials we're given, and by the time we get to the end, they don't look anything like what we started with, and we don't have that here, and it's very nice.
I had one question on page 8. This transfer of $408,000, is that the total amount that we took out of fund balance and moved over from governmental activities to business activities?
No, sir, that would have been a transfer from ARPA funds to the utility fund.
That's the ARPA funds?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So those are in
Okay.
a separate pot, basically.
Okay.
Right, they don't, because it's shown in a separate special revenue fund, the ARPA funds do not affect your general fund balance at all. And it's all, has to be restricted money. If you look on page 12, you will see under liabilities that there is unearned revenues, and that is your unspent ARPA funds. And so they don't affect your net position or your fund balance.
Well, where do we know the total amount that we transferred from fund balance to other places?
You'd have to go back
Do
to
you
the
know,
audit year
do
where
you
they
have
were
that,
transferred.
is that broken down in?
This year you didn't have any fund balance appropriated because your budget, your expenses, if you look in, let's see, what page will that be? Okay, if you look at page 15, that's where you're gonna find it.
Okay.
Page 15, if you look towards the bottom, you'll see total expenditures, excess deficiency of revenues over expenditures, that 138.
Got you.
That 138 is what came out of fund balance this year.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cheryl Brown, ready for our presentation on the personnel policy?
Very good. Well, thank you. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for having me back with you again to join your meeting tonight. And I'm back with you this evening to present the revised personnel policy. And let me double check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. And really with the policy, we go through these for jurisdictions and we update them for legal changes, HR best practices, and then make recommendations based on the results of the benefits survey. And you have Justin's cover memo, which he always does a great job with these. And in it you see the materials provided, the management recommendations document, the revised policy, which gracious is a 64-page document, so I promise I'm not going through that with you tonight page for page. And then the benefit survey is also included. And I just want to bring your attention to the middle paragraph that Justin provided in his summary. And I'll say most of the changes actually that were made did not change the meaning of a section, but again, updated it based on mostly HR best practices and how these things have evolved over the years. There are some changes that were added. They were rewritten entirely, or as he says, drastically revised, but I did leave those in the red font color so that those would be easy for you to see. But really most of the changes that I want to bring your attention to tonight are included in the management recommendation document. So that's really where I want to begin and just go through that document with you. And I'm not going to go through this page by page either. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. I am happy to answer any questions, but I want to bring your attention to a few items that are contained in the management recommendations that you will also find will be highlighted in red in the policy. And the first of these is number 4. And your current policy did not contain a least provision for parental involvement in schools. And this is something that is required by North Carolina General Statute. So that has been added. And one thing, when we've been working with jurisdictions, the state statute requires that you provide 4 hours of unpaid leave for parental involvement in schools. And what we are finding the trend to be is that jurisdictions are granting those 4 hours as paid leave instead of unpaid leave. And additionally, not all employees have children, so some employees have expressed interest in expanding the leave to community volunteer activities, which people participate in as well. So that section of the policy has been added, and the way it's currently written, it's written as parental school / community involvement leave, 4 hours of paid leave per year per employee, and that leave does not accrue year from year. So if they don't use any of those 4 hours in the year, then they start all over it for the next year. So that's the first addition to bring your attention to. And then number 7 is just granting authority to the manager from the council to create a program to reward employees for attaining certifications that really add value to the work that employees perform for the town. And some of these would be provided in base pay, in range increases perhaps, others might be provided in lump sum. But there has been a section that grants the manager the authority or requests that the manager develop a certification program to reward employees for the attainment of those certifications that have been defined. And then number 8, there was really just a minor change that I recommended in number 8. You already have in your current policy standby pay as well as an on-call response pay. Your on-call response pay is at 1 hour. You're paid, a minimum of 1 hour from being called back after hours to report to work. And what we find in working with other jurisdictions is that they will typically pay a minimum of 2 hours for being called back after hours. So we have recommended that the 1 hour be increased to 2 hours. And number 9 is the next one to bring your attention to. This is a relatively very inexpensive change that we recommend to jurisdictions, but in the unfortunate event that an employee would be killed on the job, your death benefit is currently $10,000. We see these range really all over the map, and the benefits survey does define this a little bit better for you, but you've got Gaston County that's right there with you, one times that level salary with a max of $50,000. You've got Rutherfordton with a max of $50,000. You've got Bessemer City, 2 times your annual salary up to a max of $100,000. So we're recommending that you consider adjusting your life insurance benefit from the $10,000 max to 1 times the annual salary with a cap of $50,000 for that change. And then I'd like to take you down to number 14. You had an annual leave benefits program, which was really a good bit different than what we typically see in the market. And by that, you had annual leave days increasing essentially at the same time as years of service increased. And typically what we find is that the vacation leave benefits are banded, I guess is the best way to put it. So an employee who has been with the organization for 0 to 2 years will get 10 days a year, 3 to 5 years will get 12, and so on and so forth. So we have updated the policy to band those leave benefits. It makes it easier for the employees, I think, to keep up with, as well as administratively for the staff to administer. So we have included in your policy years of service less than 2, 10 days a year, 2 to 5, 12, 5 to 10, 15, 10 to 15, 18, 15 to 20 would be 20, and then 20 clock. Hold on just a moment. Sorry about that. I just got a low battery notice on my computer. I didn't want that to happen to me. And 20 plus years would be 22 days. And where you cap out now is at 20 days a year. So again, looking at the benefits survey, and we do include data on vacation days accrued as well as longevity. 22 days puts you very, very close to your competition. Some go to 24, some go to 26, but that does bring you more in line with the jurisdictions we surveyed, and the same jurisdictions that we surveyed for your salary survey. And then in number 15, the town currently allows holiday time to accrue if the employee is unable to take the holiday off. What we are proposing is that you just have your holidays. Right now you have 12 to 13, and instead of having to keep track of accruals and allowing folks to take those off and keeping track of how quickly they need to take them and those sorts of things, we're just recommending that you go ahead and if the holiday rolls around, whether the employee is working that day or not working that day, that they just go ahead and receive the holiday pay. And for those folks that are working on the holiday, they get their regular pay as well as the holiday pay. So that's, the change we're recommending in 15. And then in 16 is the last one that we'll bring up with you this evening, and although it's not yet included in the personnel policy revision, in talking with Justin as we were doing this work and learning how you all have traditionally done things there in Boiling Springs, in Article 7, Section 3, you typically do give a third holiday at Christmas as tradition, and we would just recommend that you consider formalizing that and offering that third holiday at Christmas to your staff. And those really are the pieces of the management recommendation report that I wanted to bring to your attention. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you've read through the policy and you have any questions about anything you've seen in there, happy to address those as well.
Any questions from council?
I had one question on the life insurance. You mentioned that was in case an employee died on the job. So that's only if an employee dies on the job, not otherwise.
Yeah, it's term life, I assume, while they're employed.
I believe
While
so.
they're employed, yes.
It's while they're employed, not on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, sir, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
And I would have a
Okay.
question.
Well, I'm just
They
trying
don't
to
have be
clarify.
clocked in, is what you're saying. As long as they're an
Right, they're
employee
not-
of the town.
They don't have to be at work.
Benefit of being an employee.
Oh, no,
yeah.
it's, no, they,
Okay.
Right.
Killed on the
I have a
job.
question on that, although I don't know that it relates to this, but I don't ask it now, I'll forget it is that portable? In other words, when an employee, it's term life, I'm sure, but if an employee chose to take it with him, I'm sure the cost would go up, but if he chose to take it with him, could he?
I don't know the specifics of your life insurance policy. I can tell you from my experience that, when we had employees that terminated at the city, it was prohibitively expensive for them to port that life insurance. But I don't know what your policy may stipulate or what those costs may be.
I think it would be something to check into if we're gonna be changing it.
Yeah.
At least gives them the option, cause otherwise, they work for us for 20 years and we pay that policy for 20 years, and the day they leave, they don't have any insurance.
Yes, sir.
So I do think if it's portable, it's, at least gives them the option of deciding, I wanna keep it or I don't.
Was there any nominal cost for that increase for the town's portion?
We reached out to the insurance provider for a number. And Rhonda, I don't think you heard back from them yet, did you? No, but it was.
It's minimal.
Yeah, it was $3 and change, I think, per employee
Yeah.
per
Per
month
month.
currently.
Oh.
So
It's minimal,
yeah, we didn't get a
Yeah.
formal number.
although I don't think I think it probably is by the age of the employee.
Yeah, it's gonna vary by
It'll
age.
be a whole
and
lot
the
higher for
salary
me than
cap.
with you.
Who is the insurance agency?
That's that's the
Guardian.
Well, the employees have that benefit in Elders, their retirement system. In Teasers and Elders, you have 1 times your salary up to $50,000. So this is in addition to that.
And that would be if they retired with the town.
I think once you're vested, you have it as long as you're
Well,
working.
If you're vested, then you're gonna get retirement.
Yeah, yes, as long as you're working. Now, once you retire, that goes away.
I still think if it's portable, it's better at least gives them another option. Maybe they want 50, maybe they need $100,000 for life insurance. And a lot of them won't take it, from experience. But I have had some that would take it because it's the only life insurance they had, so.
But do they have any flex benefits for term life, whole life?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Say that again.
I think they have the option for those.
have supplemental
I think we,
Yeah,
through other insurance providers.
Right.
that's not something that we're currently providing.
I think we probably
Right.
have.
Yeah,
strengths
that's,
on
But they have the option.
That's something that an employee pays for
Yes,
if
sir.
they want it. I was just asking, do they have that option?
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's something, as well, since we don't have a hard number on that, if you all wanted to, wait on that implementation, we could, for next month or for the budget sessions that'll be coming up in the next few months. We can look at that however you all want to. So it's not a all or nothing to adopt this policy and not, put that in there, if that makes sense. And the one other item I wanted to mention that that Cheryl didn't was number 2 in the management recommendations. That allows us to update position descriptions internally. So as job functions and duties kind of shift internally, the position and the pay grade and all that stuff stays the same, and that's that approval is with you all. But shifting around some of that wording of kind of who does what internally would be delegated to the manager.
Thanks, Justin, for picking up on that.
No problem.
So we could proceed with a motion to adopt this as is, or we could table it until a later date. Is that
Yes,
what
sir.
you're
Yep.
suggesting? What's the pleasure of council?
I move that the personnel policy be adopted as revised.
Mr. Green with a motion to adopt the policy as is.
Second.
Second from Ms. Gant. You can cast your votes on the electronic machine. That carries 3-2. At this point, before we move to budget amendments, I'd like to invite Mr. Evans up. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for having me here this evening. Run through a bullet point list here. It is exam time, so anxiety is quite high as we wrap that up. Graduation approaches, so that quickly turns into celebration this weekend for our December grads. I want to thank all those that have been involved in the past couple weeks. We've had an amazing, unique, I would say 3-4 weeks here around the Thanksgiving holiday. A&T came to town on November 19th, and Gardner-Webb, I'm proud to say, is Big South champions for football this year. Pretty big deal for us. And on top of that, went into the FCS playoffs, went to Eastern Kentucky, and won the first ever playoff game in the history of the university. So really excited about that. Groundbreaking for the amphitheater. Several folks from the community, you guys came over. Thank you for that participation. Also with the Founders Day and Festival of Lights, just a good time had by all. The marker did get put up. Not sure if it's in the right spot. I know we were going to check on that. No, I'm joking. It is in the right spot. We checked that. And so that's up. If you're ever on campus, swing by. It's on if you're looking at the front of the DCC is what we call it now. It's called the something else. I'm blanking on it. But it's to the right side. You'll see it between there and the Hamrick building. And I want to invite everybody, community prayer gathering tomorrow at 11:30. We do that every month. And then last couple things, basketball season, men's and women's basketball, wrestling, several other sports are underway. Come out and support. Digital magazine has gone live. If you know anything about universities, they all think they need to do these magazines. It's 2022, so we still print some of them, but they are all now digital online. It allows us to share it across a wider range of folks. And then the last thing I have, hot off the press, stay tuned. More information for Hoops coming, which is our basketball version of Homecoming. It looks like that's going to roll out in February, so be on the lookout for that. But again, I do want to reiterate my thanks. I know several of you walked across the street, so to speak, and came out and participated and were involved. So thank you guys for that. So, thank you guys.
Please tell Bo that we appreciate him coming to the tree lighting.
Absolutely, we'll do. Anytime anybody wants to babysit, dog sit.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. All right, we have a couple of budget amendments. Justin, I'll let you speak to that.
Yes, sir. So we've got these under the consent agenda with the minutes. If you all want to pull out the budget amendments and discuss those, we can do so. I wanted to touch on them real quick. So they basically are appropriating incoming funding for grant funds. One is going to appropriate the funds for the electric vehicle chargers. So that will just show revenue from those funds that will be coming in. And the other will appropriate funds from an economic development agreement that we'll be talking about later in the meeting. So under the economic development item, there's a proposed MOU between us, Cleveland County, and Gardner Webb that I've spoken to the county manager and President Downs about. So this would appropriate those funds if that MOU is agreed upon by everybody and signed. So we've got those two sort of revenue items coming in, the EV charger money and then the money from the MOU. The third budget amendment that's in there would move funding for some of those items from ARP money into the general fund. So it would move $11,000 for our portion of the electric vehicle charging stations. That's a total of $31,000. So the state's given us $20,000, and then it would put $6,250 for the economic development agreement into that general fund. So just a note: if you all approve these, that money goes in. If for whatever reason we don't want to move forward with the economic development project or the MOU doesn't work out, that $6,250 stays in the general fund, and we can reappropriate that next month, or it can just go in as an overage. But I get the feeling, I think, that we're committed to the EV chargers, so that's kind of the other part of it. So the $6,250 is really kind of that part that's still up in the air, but we've got pretty much everything ironed out for it. I just wanted you to know what you're moving around before you agree to it.
So the budget amendments and the minutes are a part of the consent agenda?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct? Okay, it says reports, as it has the heading in that area. That's why I was
Can I get clarification on that, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Because you got me, I'm confused when you say $6,250.
Okay.
Are you saying all these add up to $6,250?
No, sir. So our part of the economic development agreement would be $6,250, $6,250.
just 25% of the thing?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So the $11,000 from the EV chargers and the $6,250 for the economic development is the $17,250 on the one budget amendment.
Other questions? So if it pleases council, we can adopt the budget amendments and the minutes from the November 8th meeting as one consent agenda, if there is a motion to do so.
Motion to do so.
All right, a motion by Mr. Green. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, a second from Mr. Edwards. So you can cast your vote on the consent agenda for the budget amendments and the minutes. All right, those have been adopted. Moving to regular business, we have to consider the 23 council meeting schedule. If you'll note, the next meeting would be on January 10th, as January 3rd, the first Tuesday, would be right after the New Year holiday. The only other one moved would be the July 11th meeting. We've met at the end of June to approve the budget in the past.
Yes, sir. We can schedule that. I think this last year we approved it at the first June meeting,
Okay.
so we didn't need to schedule that.
Okay.
But this doesn't include any budget planning meetings that could be added additionally. This is just sort of the regular meeting schedule.
Okay.
And we did go ahead and include a planning retreat date. That was the same date as last year when we had that. it's tentative, you all can approve this, and then we can change it, or, we can hold out that date, and you all can check your calendars and get back to us, but we wanted to go ahead and just put that out there for everybody to be thinking about.
Any amendments to the meeting schedule, or is there a motion to approve it as written?
Is the September 5th, is that after Labor Day, the day after?
I believe it would be, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. I'll motion to approve council meeting minutes, or meeting schedule for 2023 as presented.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Gant. Cast your votes, yea or nay.
And we'll keep talking about that planning retreat date in case we need to move that, but that can be tentative.
All right. Quite a few items in the discussion for economic development. So, Mr. Longino, I will let you speak to
Thank you,
that.
sir. There are quite a few items here. There's only one or two that we actually need formal approval on. We're looking for feedback from others, and I thought about breaking these down separately, but I know before we've kind of talked about related items on the agenda, and we've kind of wanted to get into the next item first, so I wanted to kind of lump them all together so you all could have the larger discussion. So first, what we've got is the timeline, rough estimate on what it would take to build the buildings out front of Town Hall. We've started calling that the Town Commons Plaza, but wanted to provide you all with an overview of the steps that we might take to make that happen. I got the sense from the last meeting that we wanted to be methodical about that process, so kind of put things in lockstep in here. Of course, some things could be run kind of at the same time, but again, wanted to be cognizant of taking it a little bit slower. Also built in some check-in points for us to look at, so that as we get to a certain phase or end of a phase or beginning of a phase, it's coming before council for you all to review, to consider, to make sure that we're all on the same page as we continue to move that forward. So that has got the timeline for those buildings, and then some links at the end to the developer recruitment packet that we've talked about previously, the renderings for the properties that you've already seen, or the buildings that you've already seen. And then the next page behind that is a list of available properties that we've talked about previously that would sort of coincide with that developer recruitment packet. Mr. Sontag has put together this list of properties that we know are for sale or for lease, and then we have a list of properties that we're trying to get some more information on, or that maybe aren't currently for sale or lease, but we've heard that may be opening soon, so, or maybe, opening for sale or for lease soon. So we have those in terms of a marketing perspective to be able to show potential businesses. And I actually sent this to the Economic Development Partnership last week, because Mr. Rupp, who was here last month, said that he had somebody that was interested in bringing a business to Boiling Springs. So that's been a useful list so far. I'm gonna keep going unless there's any questions. Y'all can stop me, but I wanted to kind of give you an overview of everything first.
And I don't remember on that list, but I know of two other businesses that are gonna be.
Okay.
The Folks Cleaners are closing December the 20th,
Yeah, that's under contract, and
and Truist Bank is leaving in March.
I'd heard that rumor. I didn't want to put
It's
it
not-
on here. I didn't
it's
have
not a rumor.
confirmation of it.
I mean,
So,
my-
okay.
My wife has accounts there, and she's been told, she went in and
Okay.
asked, and they told her in March they'd be
Okay.
closing their local branch.
Gotcha. Is there a tenant for the Folks Cleaners?
I
Do you
don't know.
Okay. I
I
hadn't
just
heard any plans.
went to pick up some cleaning, and she told me,
Mm-hmm.
after the 20th, that
Yeah.
they would, I'd have to go take it to Shelby.
So the next item in the packet is the MOU that I mentioned between us, the county, and Gardner Webb, and then behind the MOU is the agreement for consulting services from Retail Strategies, which is the retail recruitment firm that I've made reference to a time or two in the past couple of months. the idea would be to contract with Retail Strategies, who would offer some training and support for recruitment of retail establishments. They look at sort of the greater Boiling Springs area, so they actually have access to data that shows where people are traveling from to come into Boiling Springs or go out of Boiling Springs and shop at, so that we can then take that data and go to companies and say, these people are leaving Boiling Springs for this company, why don't you put a company here so that they're served better within our limits. So the MOU would be the partnership for us to partner on the training. Again, we've had conversations about that, so I'm looking to just get your feedback on the actual agreement and moving forward with that. Mr. Schweppe and I spoke this afternoon, and there are a couple of little tweaks in the language of the actual consulting agreement that we'd want to get straight first. But if you all are okay with that, we can continue to move forward with it. We haven't talked about it in a formal manner. I've just mentioned the retail recruitment firm previously. So we've got that in there, and then Mr. Sontag has been working on quotes to tear down the Old Town Hall at 145 South Main Street. He spoke to several different companies. In the beginning, he had 4 or 5, and then it kind of came down to about 3. And we thought we were going to get 2 bid submittals, but the best submittal we ended up getting was for $228,000 to tear that building down and haul everything off. And they said that it could be more than that. So that was sort of their best estimate. Doing sort of a cursory review on the outside and doing a small walk around on the inside. So I know that's something we've talked about previously that we haven't had a number around. So I wanted to give you all that. My thinking on it is that we parcel off the property that would be between the curb and sort of the front of the gymnasium. That would be about a 0.4 acre parcel, and we could list that for sale and see what interest that might generate. We may get somebody that wants to develop it and come in and tear it down, and we don't have to spend those funds, or it may be somebody that we can partner with and the cost would be less. But wanted to get your feedback on that as well. And then the last item in there, sort of bringing it all home from a numbers perspective, I wanted to outline the plan that we had talked about at the beginning of the, well, I guess really when the budget process started. We wanted to come up with our thoughts for how to budget those ARPA funds. And so the box at the top on this spreadsheet form in your packet is what we had originally talked about. The second box is what we have already allocated. It includes that $408,000 that Mr. Litton referenced earlier, and then funds for implementation of the salary study. And so the bottom box looks at what our options are moving forward. We talked about wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Those are still in there. Some of the money we moved out of that $408,000 would cover some of that. But then we've still got the remaining funds. We'll owe McGill some of that money for completion of the downtown or the South Main Streetscape project. We've got the EV charger line item in there, and then the retail recruitment money that we just moved over. And then we've sort of got the Town Commons Plaza or the demolished town hall is another option in there. And then for further review next month, we'll have the land use plan. So we got submittals for updating our land use plan last month. Those have been under review. They'll go to planning board next week, and then you all in January. And we're recommending to use ARPA funds to update the land use plan. And we heard from some of the submittals that we could incorporate a Parks and Rec master plan with that process. So they're going to be getting community feedback for the land use plan, and it kind of makes sense to go ahead and start getting community feedback at some of those meetings and throughout that process for our parks. So we've put that in there as a recommendation to use those funds to update the land use plan and add on a parks master plan. So I know that was a lot.
Is that all?
But
Anything else?
but being that Old Town Hall and the buildings out front were kind of correlated, and we had funds for sort of either or there. and then having the MOU with Retail Strategies. Those were kind of the main things I wanted you all to be able to discuss and compare and contrast and what have you.
I'd just like to say that, you know, initially the buildings out front, I wasn't much in favor of. But, you know, after looking at the drawings and looking at areas where the town can grow business-wise, I have since changed my mind, and I have actually made it a point to talk to some people around town, this is what they think, and I have yet to talk to anybody who doesn't think it's a good idea, which I found kind of surprising. So I'm getting more excited about it, I guess. I think it's something we need to seriously pay attention to. My only reservation, and there's no way to not to know this, is we build a new building and one of our other businesses decides he wants to be in a new building and he vacates an older building. There's no way to prevent that from happening, but I would hope it would be growth. And even if he moved, then the spot he vacated is available. But so I'm excited about that. So I think we need to. The old town hall is becoming an albatross, I think, around our neck, as I was afraid it might be, but it is what it is. I had a question, the Roosters building. So I think you indicated that you're not getting any communication anymore from the owner. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
last few weeks that had dropped off, and so we have a hearing scheduled for next Friday. That will be, if they show up and are able to present evidence of moving forward with some sort of plans, we can work with them on what that looks like moving forward as far as a timeline and completion. And if not, you all will have an extra agenda item in January to consider taking care of that property in some form or fashion.
I think we've been more than lenient with it.
Is that hearing just between town management and the owners?
It is. It would be just between us, but anyone could attend. I'm pretty sure it would be a public meeting. It's not quasi judicial or anything like that. So.
It's not required to be put out as in notice.
No, sir. No, there's no notice requirement. Yeah.
I'm just curious. What type of value do we think that 0.4 acres has?
I'm not sure. I mean, with the condition that it's in and everything that's there, you know, the feedback we got from contractors was that there'd be a lot involved with tearing down and hauling off. But, you know, if somebody came in with the right idea and wanted to renovate it, it would still need a lot of work on the inside, but, you know, the structure, I think, would be pretty sound. It would need a new roof, but, I mean, the walls and everything are.
And it's connected to the building that Gardner Webb owns?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I think in the past there is some asbestos in the old cafeteria there. I think at one time the community looked at raising money to make that a community building, and
Oh, really?
I think one of the issues there was asbestos in the floor covering, or there was an asbestos issue, I'm not sure.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, the area that it was built in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that a smaller contractor is interested on taking a bigger project. I'm not even convinced right now with the limited information I have, that the larger bid even covers all the bases. Knowing that there's so many unknowns, there's such an architectural, structural risk of taking apart an old building like that, let alone all the other state and federal certifications those contractors have to be able to handle those dangerous materials. So I would want a lot more information before we even proceeded on that, qualifications of the contractor, not just bid-based either.
Yeah, and I think if you all wanted to move forward with that option, we would put together something much more formal to try and get a bigger company to give us a plan to do that.
That have those resources available to them.
Yeah. right now, it was kind of we're looking at doing this, how much would it cost? Ballpark kind of thing, so.
Gotcha.
I think for me personally, I'd have to have a whole lot more information before I would vote to spend $300,000
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
to tear it down.
I-
Although
I could
I think
easily-
I'd like to see something, as you know, going on there,
Yes,
but
sir.
Very detailed.
we can spend the money.
That
Yeah.
300,000 could easily turn into 500 with change orders.
Well, I'd wanna make sure that that $500 we were gonna be able to recover that and some more by
Yeah.
selling it or whatever was going there.
Right.
Before I would even consider. Although I do think it's something we're gonna have to deal with one way or the other, as Mike has shared with us, you know, the roofs, it's gonna continue to deteriorate, so we're either gonna have to spend some money on it or something. Or it's gonna become an eyesore, and, which we don't want. And I know Gardner Webb doesn't want.
Speaking of Gardner Webb, the MOU for retail strategies, there is one of the scope items is that we all attend a 6-hour session down in Birmingham. It's a 2-part question. Would we all go down, or would it be more feasible to hire them to come up for one, especially for a day trip?
They've said they prefer to go down, but it would be, in theory, it would be me, a representative from Gardner Webb, and then 2 representatives from the county.
Okay.
That would just attend.
That answered my question.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay. Because looking at the MOU, there's shared cost, and I want to make sure those other parties feel that they are represented well.
Sir. And to that point, I wanted to mention when you were saying something, Mr. Green, that for the buildings out front, our next sort of step in this outline would be to move forward with the retail strategies agreement, and then attend that training and come back with some additional ideas for recruitment and seeing that we could get some tenants for those buildings, and checking in before we move forward with anything else. But
Oh, yeah.
Anything else you need on this item? Do you need any formal?
if you all are in favor of moving forward with the retail strategies agreement, I think John and I still need to iron some things out. So we could approve it pending those changes, or we can just bring it back in January, but really wanted to know one way or the other if you all were agreeable to just moving forward with that.
Any feedback from council on that?
I'm okay with moving forward with it with council's approval.
It's just
Yes.
legalese and not necessarily scope change, right?
No, no,
Right.
yeah,
Right,
just,
okay.
yeah.
It's questions we need answers to, so yes, move forward.
Is that okay, or you need a
Yeah,
formal?
no, that'll be fine. We'll
Yeah.
we'll work out the MOU details, and then John and I'll get that, and we'll bring you a formal package for approval in January on that.
Fantastic.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Sontag, still available. We have the update to, or the revisions to chapter 114, the peddlers and solicitors
Yeah.
item.
me-
Mr. Sontag was working on that. To brief.
I think I heard him back there. He should be. He's in his office, so I don't know which door he's coming in.
He's involved in a class right now, I think, as
Yes,
well.
yeah. Not sure how long it was going for though, so he may have just wrapped up.
Justin, would you like to start the ball rolling?
Yeah, let me, actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, can we skip down to the next item? I can cover it pretty quickly. I'm gonna, ask you all to table that. But just wanted to open it up if you all have any feedback, having read through it. So that's the item on the, bird bike and scooter. agreement and ordinance. Still have some details to work out with Gardner Webb. I wanted to have this to you all in case they were ready, and I didn't want to delay them getting those in place before the start of the school year in January. But we still need to work out some things on their end, so just ask you to table that unless there's any feedback.
There he is.
Do you need a motion to table
Yes, sir.
the e-bike?
Motion to table.
All right, Mr. Litton
Second.
with the motion, Mr. Green with the second. Y'all can cast your green votes. Mr. Sontag, if you don't, you can come up and let us know about the,
I'm sorry, I'm confused on this. Are we voting for the?
we're tabling the e-bikes to discuss it next, in the next few months.
Thank you.
Yep. all yours.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I just first like to start out by saying how really exciting it is to finally get up here in front of y'all. It's pretty hard to believe how quickly 4 months can fly by. We're here at my fifth council meeting, and I'd just like to take the opportunity again to say thank you to everybody for letting me come and be a part of this great team. I mean, I really couldn't have been luckier to be placed here, and every day it just grows on me more and more. So I kind of joked with Justin when I was taking the job. I was being half serious with him. I said, I cannot find anything bad about this town online. And genuinely, I really have not figured that out yet. So thank you for everyone. And we have just a wonderful team here with everything. So it's great to be here. So to begin, there were a number of concerns mentioned in the November meeting that we wanted to make sure that we addressed. There was a desire for general prohibition against begging, concerns about appearing unwelcoming to people outside of the community, concern about enforceability and kind of having the police department running around town, and a desire to make a repeat violations of the ordinance a misdemeanor. So when we started this process looking through it, we really had a very strong foundation with the current ordinance. We just needed to tighten up what activities were permitted while leaving the rest virtually intact as it is right now. So to start off, we issued a general prohibition against begging and against soliciting in section 114.02. There is a prohibition against begging on the streets and a ban on soliciting in general, with the one caveat that charitable or religious organizations can get a permit to conduct their fundraising efforts. The standards for issuance, revocation, and the appeal process were very strong as they are, and we left them as they were. And the town manager has the freedom to determine which organizations are charitable and religious kind of at their discretion, though we are using the common definitions of those terms in the ordinance. The second major thing that we addressed was appearing unwelcoming, and that was a little bit more difficult to balance. Like I just mentioned, the manager enjoys a high degree of kind of autonomy when determining what organizations are determined to be religious or charitable. But the way that the ordinance is currently laid out, section 114.04 compels the manager to issue a permit to individuals who are determined to be charitable and or religious, so while, of course, the intent of this is not to stop the elementary schools from sending their people around, the Boy Scouts from selling popcorn, and if we were to determine that this is an actual Boy Scout troop and they're doing the right things, they're not a threat to the general welfare, safety of the public, then like I mentioned, the manager would be compelled to give them license. And that was the best way we thought we could balance having the ban while still being open to people and making the process clear and straightforward for them. I think this shifts nicely into the third concern that we had, which is the issue of enforceability, and specifically not having the PD driving all over town all the time, for every situation where someone may show up. So one of the changes in section 114.08 that we made is that we require charitable organizations who have been issued a permit to carry the permit with them at all times. This means that we believe that if a concerned citizen wants to make sure that the Boy Scout on their front door is actually a Boy Scout, they would be required to have the permit there. And if they don't, or they're there for something other than religious or charitable an issue, if we get a call about that, we immediately know that that's something that we need to go take a look at and try to address. So hopefully, again, this will be a nice balance between having the ability to enforce the ordinance, but not be overly policing and constantly busy with these types of calls. Staff will maintain a list of licensed charitable or religious organizations, so we could very quickly answer someone's question if they call us and say, are these people allowed to be here? Yep, absolutely, okay. We are aware of what they're doing. Now, in the same vein as enforceability, we updated the section 114.99, our penalty section. There was a little bit of a concern in the office. We were talking about this, about repeat offenders. So we decided to expand the options available to deal with violators. Now, as it is written with the written red line copy, violators will first receive a warning. The second time is a $50 fine. The third is a $200 fine and a third-degree misdemeanor for violating the ordinance. Violations will remain on a list for 1 year before it resets. So if they get their $50 penalty, a year after getting the $50 penalty, they'll be, instead of getting the third misdemeanor, they'll just get another $50 penalty. That was kind of the plan with that. Finally, at the end of that section, there is a piece about equitable remedies, abatements, or injunctions from a proper court. We really like that wording in the current ordinance because if we were running a situation where this one company just keeps sending people, they let them come get their one warning, they go home and they send the next guy out the next day. The way the current wording is we can go to the court with jurisdiction on this issue and get them to issue an order to stop that. So again, we have some pretty strong mechanisms to shut down that kind of behavior, and especially with the misdemeanor in place, it would be quite a strong deterrent to people trying to do that stuff. I would like to mention right now, just so I don't forget, so Noah doesn't worry anymore. If we were to go the misdemeanor route, we would need to pass that in at least the next meeting that we have, according to the general statutes. They have a rule: the first night it's introduced, cannot pass a misdemeanor the same night for that ordinance. Finally, a couple of very minor changes to bring your attention to. We removed the fee to get a license to solicit to seem welcoming. We want you here, just go get a permit. Once you get it, it's all good. We increased the price for a push cart or mobile food unit from $25 to $50, and we expanded how long license issued are valid for from 90 days to 365 days. And we clarified that the equitable remedies, injunctions, or abatements that I mentioned at the end in the penalty section is aimed specifically at the company and not at the solicitor themselves. So with that, I'm all wrapped up with all the changes that we made, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have now.
I think you did a great job, very thorough. On the permits for the charitable and religious, like Boy Scouts or churches, I think back to the Saturday before Thanksgiving when the Boy Scouts go around the multiple neighborhoods and do their can drive, right? I imagine, and I've got some input from some friends locally that are on the Boy Scouts, that they actually have multiple parents out at multiple neighborhoods for an hour or two. So how does that permit? How is that shared, or can you make multiple copies for each responsible party at each different neighborhood? I mean, how's that? I mean, I can't imagine every single Boy Scout carries around a permit, because then, teens will be teens, right? So, how do we address that?
That's a great question. I think that would be an internal kind of a decision we make, right?
Yeah, I think we would ask for where they're going to be soliciting, and just note that on the permit, and then we could provide a copy back to them and just ask them to distribute it to anybody that's going to be out. But then we'll also have a record of that internally. So if somebody were to call and say, they're over here in this neighborhood, who is this?
Yeah, who's the chaperone for this group? Yeah.
Another thing we could do, and I'm on the commission for the Boy Scouts in town, is most of them wear uniforms. We could require them to be in uniform. That way, they'd be easily recognizable as a scout.
Well, and can we issue the permit to the group, like Boy Scout groups are usually set up, cheerleading groups, football groups, and all this, or does it have to be for an individual?
For the group.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So then that seems like that'd be pretty simple. You just do it for the group and have that group coverage make copies and hand it out for whatever group is participating.
As it is right now, when they go to do the permit, there's the organization name, they put down that, and then each of the people who will be involved in the fundraising activities. So we wouldn't even need to adjust it from how it currently is for that. But yeah, that's a great point.
So each individual person's listed that's participating?
Yes, ma'am, they should be.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have one comment on the mobile food unit. And of course, I brought up expanding that so it's available for up to a year. And I think that's good because you got people that come and they know they're gonna come back. And they don't have to do a permit, every 3 months. But for somebody new that says, well, I'm gonna try that place out, I don't know if I'm coming back or not. It depends on how well I do. I'd like to see a one-time option. Maybe $25 for a one visit. And then if the person comes back and says, I like it, and they can go ahead and buy a year. Or they can pay $25 every time and spend $250. I mean, that's, not what they're gonna do, but
Right.
Yes, sir, we could definitely look into that.
I would appreciate it if that would be added and then leave that annual option in there.
Does that include mobile food trucks?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah, that's the push cart mobile food truck, yes.
Is it say, okay.
Yeah.
It'd have to be,
Missed that.
it'd have be somewhere whoever's enforcing it knows what type permit they have.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We'll
I
have
would
to-
imagine it's right there by the public health department score. Right? Usually on food trucks, they have a
But I mean,
public health
somebody's got to
department
go and
score.
look every time.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
And we can make that a selection on the form if they want to do a one-time permit or a yearly permit.
I would say you make it attractive to buy a 1 year and cost prohibitive to buy a single.
Well, I think 25 for one and 50 for a year is quite the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
So when we have like downtown events and the food trucks are there, do those vendors have to pay a permit or is that waived?
Yes, sir, it's waived.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Perfect. Thank you all very much.
Good
Good
job.
job.
Good job.
Thank you.
Work, yeah.
So no motion needed, and the amendments will be kind of worked out, and we'll deal with it in January.
Yes, sir, it'll come
as well.
back and we'll present it again, yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, financial report? Is that next?
Yeah, we have the notes in there and the finances in there just for your reference. I'm just here to answer any questions you've got, but I figured you're financed out for the night, so, we didn't prepare anything to present.
Start having to have a break halfway through.
Yeah, we don't have to on nights like this. Any questions or comments on the fourth quarter financials?
Well, the only thing I noted was, of course, it all looks good, but, Lattimore, revenue over expenses continues to look very good. The revenue was like 21,000, and expenses was 11,000. When does that contract come back up?
I believe it's February. I've sent some revisions to Mayor Beal. I'll have a revised copy for you and Mayor Thomas to look at shortly, and then we'll probably have it on the January agenda.
Okay.
With the new liquor by the ounce or
Drink.
in place, when do we expect those taxes to start generating, and will it be quarterly? Is that coming in monthly with the beer and wine? How's that work?
I'm gonna pitch it to Mr. Schweppe or Mr. Saldo. I know they've done some research on that.
Well, it'll depend on when, the frequency of payments, I don't know, but the establishment will have to go through, the alcohol enforcement, officer. They go through Raleigh, so
There's a process to get it.
that process. I would
accepted.
imagine it would be, if someone applied today, I don't know how long the process that they would have to go through takes, but
Okay.
it would be a process. I wouldn't imagine, Ron may have some idea on when
Sure.
it's expected, but there's a process, and it probably will start slow. and then,
Okay.
you know,
I mean, I see the comment here about beer and wine tax been received for 2022 and 3 yet, so the distribution usually comes in February. I would imagine it's probably the same principle and frequency.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Is that even a substantial revenue for us? I mean, I'm glad to have
Beer
it.
and wine tax,
No, I'm thinking the liquor one was probably just double it and that'll be about it.
Well, it's actually dropped over time. When we first got into it, we were getting maybe twice what we've budgeted now. Because more and more people have started selling it, and what I understand is it's a lump sum that they divide between all the people that are selling it.
You have adopted the beer and wine, and I think that's how it is that the tax is being distributed. So it has gone down.
I was just curious.
Okay.
We just have to find ways to entice them to buy it here.
Yeah, and I don't know that we've ever intended it to be a revenue. I think we looked at it more from an economic standpoint.
Yes,
to try
We did. It
to
did.
broaden our tax base by businesses and places coming
Yeah.
in more so than the revenue off of the sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there are municipalities that have specific taxes on beer and wine,
That's correct. yes.
like an additional 1%.
Mhm. Which could be an additional revenue item for us.
Just looking at our audit going, we missed it by 3,000, you know?
There you go.
So, I know it's not that simple. I've oversimplified that, but yes.
Anything else on the financials? Mr. Longino?
Thank you, sir. Just a few things to run down. Talked to Miss Kim Duran yesterday. They are applying for a Part F grant. That's the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. Part F requires a sample size based off of the jurisdiction, and they have to either use Cleveland County or Boiling Springs. And as you can imagine, the sample size required for Boiling Springs is somewhat smaller, so that's going to save on time and cost to mail out that feedback, and it'll also allow them to hopefully get more responses to that feedback. If they partner with us, that would be the goal. So they've gotten funding to apply. They're asking to apply, basically put our name on the application. They're working with the grant writer that the county has. But that's been the request, and she's going to come in January to ask you all to formalize that more. But I've told her from a staff perspective, we're fine to help review that grant application and let them put our name on that. But it won't cost us anything, and like I said, they're working with a grant writer to do that. So expect her in January, though, to formally approve that. We have several grant applications that we've put out there that are lingering that should be announced in the next week or two. So keep your fingers crossed for those. We're excited about that, and I know Mr. Sontag's applied for a couple too. So he's excited to get his first grant award under his belt. I would say the Christmas tree lighting was a big success. Thank you to everybody that participated and came out for that. We have some Christmas ornaments at your seats. They are decorative ornaments to go on your tree, but if you open them up, there's some peat moss and some seeds in there that you can plant actually into the ornament, or you can transplant them into a pot. They're red, white, and blue, just a mixture of little flowers, but I wanted to do something a little different. So we got those, and we'll be giving them out to the staff and council and planning board and a few other folks in the community. So last thing I had was the planning and zoning board meeting that would typically be next Tuesday was moved to Thursday. Tried to work around scheduling conflicts for the holidays, and still at 5:30? Still at 5:30 next Thursday. That's all I got.
All right, Mr. Green?
First of all, I'd like to apologize to Councilman and Town Manager. I fully intended to attend the Founder's Day event, but I went down to my church to help them decorate for Christmas and climbed around on a ladder and done some things I shouldn't be doing, and I've got a bad knee and it acted up, and I called to see if I could get me a cortisone shot. Thursday afternoon was the only afternoon I could get it, so I went and took it, and then he suggested I come home and take it easy, but fully intended to attend that event. I'm sure it was a great event.
That's good.
And also, I'd just like to say that I knew the answer to the trivia question without anybody telling me. Seriously. Anybody else know the answer to it? Do anybody know what the trivia question is of the month?
I don't remember.
Oh, they're not
I read
reading
it, but
their,
I
they're not
can't
reading their
remember.
newsletter.
No, I read
I
it.
read it, but I forgot.
I can't remember.
Okay, it's a sidebar. Also, I'm gonna be having cataract surgery tomorrow morning. You know, you get old, you know, you go to falling apart. Got more doctors than anything else is, and more prescriptions to be filled at the local pharmacy. So I'm not gonna be able to attend the MPO meeting tomorrow night, but Mr. Litton, Councilman Litton's gonna be attending, so appreciate that. I thought the tree lighting event was great. I hope we can keep expanding on that, and I think it can grow into something that I know everybody that's there always enjoys it. And our school reader, he stepped up to the plate and did a great job, and I stuck my head in, and there's a lot of kids there, and it's great. And Ms. Beaver said he read to the Boiling Springs and Springmore schools, but he's branched out. He goes down to Township 3. He went down and read to my daughter's class, special needs class, and they were very, very appreciative of that. She called and said, "You think he'd come down?" I said, "Well, I don't think. I feel fairly sure he will." So within 5 minutes, we had that put together. So I think he's to be commended for that. Enjoy serving with the council. Hope everybody has a great Christmas and good New Year. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, great job on the conceptual execution packet. I really think that helps me understand, sort of the idea where we're heading on those things. And, you know, I've really been a big proponent of economic development. And I hope that we can continue looking at those, partnerships with Gardner-Webb University and staying on top of our, you know, zoning issues as they come up. It's really important for our town to continue to grow and progress if we do this. But you guys have done a phenomenal job on that, and we talked a lot about money tonight. And this town has always been very good at trying to budget and looking at the future and the needs as well. So thank you to Rhonda and everyone that does the financials as well. And again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone, and that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litton?
I want to make sure we thank the Philip Glover family. He let us use the golf cart for the parade. I personally enjoyed riding in the golf cart for the parade. I think it got us closer to people, and we were able to hand out candy. We didn't throw candy.
You didn't.
I guess. Well, let me rephrase that. Our golf cart didn't throw candy.
We're not going to say names.
And I guess that's something we'll talk about at a later date, but anyway. But it was nice that Philip, and Tommy also helped facilitate that as well. I guess, and I apologize, I forgot the lady's name, the HR.
Cheryl
Brown.
Okay. Is she still working or planning to work on the town manager pay study?
Yes.
Okay.
She is, she actually texted me when she finished that she's finishing that up, and I'll have her email that out to you all.
Okay, that sounds good. I did not vote on vote in favor of the benefit package. It's not because I don't want the benefits to be increased. My rub with it is I don't see dollar figures that go along with what's being presented. So I don't feel like I'm being fiscally responsible to vote on something if I don't understand or know how we're going to cover it at the end of the day or the end of the year. So that got pushed through. You figure out how we got to cover it. That's all. That's all I know about that. But I would appreciate having some dollar figures from time to time, because I mean, you look, we increased the health benefits, we've increased the pay through the pay study, and now we've increased benefits even further. So I don't want to come up 3/4 of the way into the year going, oh, we're going to be underwater. Because you look at the audit, you know, we really can't be underwater. Governmental activities. I mean, we've got to build that base back up. So that's just my thought on that. Justice sent out a little bit of information about the stoplight. You know, DOT is slowly but surely working on updating the stoplight to give us turn signals. We've also been pitched by a DOT person about incorporating those lights on the monopole. And Justin has given that information to the company that's handling our streetscapes. So what one individual was saying at DOT is they're going to spend about $90,000 on that light upgrade. We could potentially put in $90,000 to $100,000, get a monopole, incorporate it into the streetscape, and have something that that's useful. You know, increases the traffic flow, but also increases the aesthetics. And we've got, I think it was $248,000 earmarked out of that ARPA money on streetscapes. I think this is an opportunity that won't come back around for 30 or 40 years. I mean, that stoplight's been hanging there a long time. We'll all be gone before it gets looked at again. So that's something I really think we ought to look at, because everybody in this town goes through that stoplight. Everybody that visits this town goes through that stoplight. And almost everybody that does that gives me a piece of their mind about how it's not working. So we're going to get it working, and we can also improve the aesthetics of it at the same time. And that's a golden opportunity I would hope we don't miss. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Edwards?
Yeah, I'll just second what Tommy was saying. The Founders Night was very enjoyable. Took my wife out and got to do some adult conversation with her as well, so that was nice. The ceremony and the presentation was well done. Is really a great opportunity to be a partner with Gardner Webb. I'd just like to recognize the young lady for her passion here. 3 or 4 nights, 3 or 4 council meetings now about solicitors, and I'm glad you got to see and hear some action out of your local government. And I applaud you for keeping your passion and seeing it through. So good job. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I kind of echo what Patrick's saying there about several of those items. So he said it very well, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gant?
Yes, I feel like we've covered a lot of valuable, important information tonight that, and I feel like we're definitely making progress, and that's seen and reflected in our staff. I want to thank everybody here tonight for all of their participation. I also want everybody to know that they come out to the Christmas parade, had a ball, wonderful time. I think we had a big turnout. I do want to apologize. I missed the lighting of the Christmas tree. I had to work, unfortunately, pushing pills. And with everybody getting the flu, I couldn't get out of that place. And when I did, I was about dead. So I apologize that I missed that. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you. We'll have 3 minutes until 2 hours, so we can fill that up. If you do have this PALS card, if you filled it out and you want to leave it with me, then do that before you leave, please. Thursday at 6:30, kind of soft launching a meeting here at Town Hall where folks can come who have lived here for their whole life or who have lived there for just a few months to talk about memories of what it was like. We've had a good discussion on Facebook today about old places to eat, and people talk about the Bantam Chef, which I don't remember that one. And but listening to Tommy and other and Pat's dad talk and tell stories got me interested in doing that. And so if you can come out 6:30 Thursday night, just 6:30 to 7:30. But like I said, kind of a soft launch, and then sometime into the new year, see if we can get more folks, especially some older folks. But I know Lorcan said he's just interested to come out and hear what it was like for other people. So
We'll have to tell him he has to listen.
That's right. That's what he said. He did say that. I'll hold him to it for sure. Other than that, I will say that this past year has been one of the best years of my life. It really has. And it's just things like, it's all kinds of things. It's building partnerships with Gardner Webb, my alma mater. It's Daphne showing up and seeing action, maybe not all the way complete action as she desired, but learning that compromise is a real thing. It's getting to read to the kids. I get to read to kindergartners this Friday. it's the hard parts too. It's the way that this town has poured out its love for my dad and my family as he has struggled with his health. But that's always been the case. That's always been the case the 45 years that I've lived here. But it's getting to know Justin and Noah. And I shouldn't have started naming names, but it's the staff that I get to work with every single day, and this council that is so patient and thoughtful. And just forward-looking. It is such a pleasure and an honor, as Mr. Ellis would say, to live in the best small town in America. I did check to make sure that I did not have to get a motion to do this, so I will just say, Merry Christmas, everybody. We stand adjourned.
This totally unrelated to the meeting, but this purchase of Book Nook, I would be willing to contribute with the other council members, and we could purchase a Book Nook.
I know Kathy.
$30 a piece.
And Kathy Creswell has indicated that she would host one in Talk of the Town. And so that could be a place where we could put one.
So
That'd be
CJ at Bakeology, now a dessert bar, has said he would
I'd be willing to go
contribute as
in
well.
with
I'd go in with you.
I'll go in with you.
Town council.
Yeah, I will,
All right.
for sure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.